Startups demand a lot, but not just from your calendar or your cash flow. As founders and leaders, real weight often hits somewhere deeper: your nervous system, your sense of self, your capacity to respond instead of react. We'll explore what suffering well looks like, how to navigate reactivity, and what to do when you're powering through but feel like your brain is pretty much held together by duct tape and iced coffee. Welcome to the Manage Chaos podcast, where we give you the startup business rundown in less time than it takes for you to get to work. I'm Rachel Anderson, and today I get the absolute pleasure of talking to a founder herself, Dana Spano, who's building a company that's redefining founder well-being by focusing not on buildable baths or breathing apps, but on what it really means to build mental space in high-demand environments. Dana is the co-founder of Entreprana, a web app that helps founders stay grounded when startup stress hits. With real-time recalibrates and weekly recaps, Entreprana turns those daily WTF moments into genuine well-being and week-over-week momentum, which is always something that every founder needs. Drawing on a background in behavioral science, brand and culture strategy, and mindfulness, Dana developed a methodology that surfaces hidden stress patterns and helps founders really flourish. Through Entreprana, Dana is on a mission to make psychological stability foundational to founder success and startup culture at large. And let me tell you, I'm so very excited to talk with the absolutely fabulous Dana. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for taking time to chat with us. I think we initially met, a little bit of here and there over the last year, but maybe a year ago?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, our first encounter was at Raleigh-Durham Startup Week 2024.
Yeah, I think you're right, which was, for me at least, just sort of a random get together. Like, it was just a side note to the main event. And I thought, oh, it's a women's founders event. That's my jam. Like, let's go do the thing. And I now are friends with a lot of the people, including you, that we actually met there.
Totally. And honestly, like that event was the highlight. Like I loved Raleigh-Durham Startup Week 2024 and 2025 for the record.
Right.
But I got to say, like that meetup, just like it made such a difference to that whole event. And it was just such a nice, quaint get together that like I had actually for this last year volunteered to like put that on again myself, just
Which we
expecting
love.
it to be very intimate, right? But I just think that event in 2024 drummed something up in the water here in Raleigh for female founders. And like the response to, me putting out that tiny little coffee event was massive.
Yeah.
And so I attribute that to, was it Raven who put that on last year?
Yep.
Just fantastic.
Another business local founder,
Yes.
Raven, which is amazing. And,
So
I think
good.
it's so interesting because in the ensuing year, we've seen each other a bunch here and there. And I feel like there's just been a building sense of need for community, for connectivity, and really this conversation that centers around wellness, which is what we're talking about this entire month: how to really protect your mental health as a founder. What does it mean? What does it look like? How do you see it in your teammates? What is burnout? Those are all kind of the topics that we've explored. And now I think it's great that we get to talk about how you came to care about this exact topic and even your view and really seeing what there is out there.
Yeah.
So with that, I think, one of the things that we've bonded a bit about mental health, right? But you deeply care about that founder well-being, which I think is kind of the origins to how you got here today. And that's been obvious for me talking to you over the years. So what really inspired you to go down the path of founder well-being, even before you were a founder? Maybe, I don't know if I know this. Were you a founder at the time, or what? Tell me about this.
Well, so what's so funny is I have been surrounded by entrepreneurs like my whole life, but like didn't have words for it.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if that's happened to you. Is like, as you grow up, you get older and you begin to think for yourself and you think back on your past and you're like, wait a second, like my whole family is like entrepreneurs and I just had no idea like what's going on. Anyway, so startup stress has been part of my life for a very long time. Let's just put it that way. And so with that, it's like I've had a front row seat to the ups and downs of, small business ownership, to tech foundership, founderhood, if that's what you want to call it. But every time there's this common thread, and that is the human at the core of that business. How do I put it? It's like the psychology. So this is how I see it. The
Mhm.
psychology that they've developed in their life so far is the foundation that their business is built on. And to the degree that they've done work that they, have the capacity to handle all of that stress, as well as like the family life that they have along with that, like that's enough to like floor anybody, right?
Yeah.
And so it's become so prevalent to me over the years just how important that foundation of psychological stability is across the board. I've seen the psychological and physiological, I guess, repercussions that come from not managing that well. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically where it started. But my way into it was on accident. It's like
Mm.
again, some of the best things
Always,
kind of
right?
happen that way, right? So I became a founder. Well, not a founder. I would say I was a small business owner back in 2019. I had opened my first business, which was a brand strategy and graphic design studio.
Mhm.
It was called Day Studios. I still miss it today. I closed those doors about a year ago so that I could focus on Entreprana full time. But funny enough, through that company, I had developed a methodology of my own for branding so that I could get to the heart of who a person was. I was working with entrepreneurs primarily
Mhm.
at the time, and just trying to help them base their brand on things they believed in, things that were core to their person, so that they wouldn't have to like change their brand constantly. The theory was that if they could present that in such a way that people would understand who it was they were, so that, there was kind of that transparency to the brand, but then also, it just felt easier to implement. So long story short, my clients kept coming back to me with, hey, like, I'm like, oh wait, what's going on? Like, no bad news, right? They're like, no, actually, like this professional brand that we've developed together, like I'm experiencing positive changes in my personal life because of it.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, hold on. I think we're onto something here. Because that methodology was rooted in, I mean, it's human centered, right?
Mhm.
And my study of behavioral science continued all throughout all my design work and everything. I have been slightly obsessed with human psychology ever since before college. So that's what I went to school for was behavioral science and psychology. But yeah, it wouldn't leave me alone. And so I was always studying all throughout. And basically what ended up happening was I realized that I could put that, like the bones of that branding methodology
Mhm.
into fast forward and put it into tech so that people can apply it real time. And that's how Entreprana got started was, just realizing that this can be technology. And AI came along in 2022. And with kind of both of those convergences, like it just happened on its own.
That's so interesting. There's some conversations I've had recently where we talk about how timing is everything, right? And it's the moment where you have the inspiration, it's the moment where you have the momentum and opportunity, it's the moment where the new tech comes on the scene that makes something possible. All those things sort of coming together. And I think it's so interesting how your timing always had to have the fabric of knowledge as well for what was possible or what was sort of the problem, right? You grew up in the startup landscape, so to speak, where it's all around you with your family, and you had that behavioral science degree, and you're building kind of the frameworks to be able to see founders in their sort of natural habitat, we'll say. And then the tech came that made all the things kind of start to solve that problem. So I can only imagine the kind of, high demand environments like both of ours that you saw constantly, and even the stressors that must have been in some of those conversations that really got highlighted. But can you tell me more maybe about, you know, what is the problem that is facing these founders, and in what you've seen and kind of putting together? What's the unconscious reactions to stress that are really coming out? What is that kind of, what is that result from some of these more chronic or um, difficult kind of long-term things that founders hold?
Yeah. I think that's the key right there is the unconscious reactions to stress, right? Because stress itself, I mean, we're taught from a fairly young age that it's not stress that's a bad thing, right? Eustress, as they call it, is actually it promotes growth and we become stronger, right? I think the most common example of this we hear is working out, right? It's like to build
Hmm.
muscle, you lift, that muscle basically breaks down and then you rebuild it, right? And it comes back stronger. Um, and so it's not stress that's bad, but it's the unconscious reactions that we don't even realize are in our faces, right? It's like
Yeah.
a co-founder can say the wrong thing at the wrong moment and you just lose it, right? It's like you fly off the handle. Um, all kinds of examples for startup founders because it is such a high demand environment. And so what I'm trying to help people do is to understand what stress is theirs, right? What reactions to stress are theirs and what maybe aren't. It's interesting because stress, or I guess our responses to stress, are kind of a gold mine for understanding ourselves better. And if we can kind of find that common thread between our reactions to stress, it can really shine a bright light on the areas that we can stand to develop, areas that we need help. So,
Yeah, that's so interesting. Even, and I've never thought of it like this before, but like even just the term to stress test something isn't
yeah,
inherently negative, right?
no,
It's just sort of like we're testing the limits. We're seeing if it can withhold the normal amount of weight or labor. So it's really interesting. Like it's not just that we have stress, it's sort of the box or the container with which that happens, and reactions occur.
yeah,
So let's go deeper though. Like when we talk about something practical or tactical to really look at or feel, um, what does that look like? So let's say a founder is feeling really scattered or reactive. Maybe it's some sort of like low key burnout potentially happening, right? But they're on demand. They have to keep powering through. So what does that look like? How do you use your technology even to recommend how founders still find success and keep going?
yeah. Well, so first off, I feel like you've just defined what it feels like to be an entrepreneur.
That's
It's
so
just like
true.
that. It's like that constant, always on kind of
Yeah.
feeling. But the kicker is, and I kind of hate it when this happens, but like the answer to that question is it depends, right?
Yeah,
It depends
fair.
on the individual. It depends on the person. We all handle things so uniquely to us, right? And again, on that foundation, that psychological foundation that we've built so far, um, one team member can be in, let's say that like that mode you just described of just being like so intense, right?
Mhm.
They can be in that mode, and their co-founder can be in that mode, but it can be for different reasons. And within their person, it can, I guess, how do I say that? It's like it can have a stronger draw, if you will, like
Mm.
from your energy reserves. Some people just naturally kind of operate in that zone and it doesn't take that much of a toll. Whereas someone else, like myself, like if I'm in that mode for too long, I feel it. I get like kind of numb, I could just describe it that way. It's like a certain numbness that I just, just get in this mode of productivity and doing and achieving. And kind of the heart of it is left out. And so for me, right, if there's a founder out there that's hooked up a lot like me, the answer would be to incorporate more feeling into it, right? Like get in touch with your why. right? See if you can kind of balance that out a little bit. Because the kicker is, it's like, for founder well-being, we hear all the time that, founders need to slow down or, something like that. But like the fact of the matter is, if you're trying to be first to market with something, like it's not in the cards to go slow. You know what I mean?
No.
And so
Yeah.
what's the answer then? Is it that, oh, I'm just not cut out for this? Like, hell no. Can I swear on this podcast? Heck
Yeah,
no.
sure. Why not? I'm not
um,
going to censor it.
Perfect. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, don't back down. Let's just find a more authentic way to go about this so that you're not draining those energy reserves, because essentially that's what it is. It's like our brains are prediction machines. And
Mhm.
so what our brains are trying to do, like when we're, let's say, like, in that gung ho, you know, super intense state, but feeling tired, what's happening is that our brain is trying to tell us, like, whoa, like if you keep going at this rate, you're going to be in trouble. And so I'm going to slow you down preemptively. Um, but what we can do is understand that about ourselves and just know that actually I know how to counteract this. And that's what Entreprana is for, is that it can understand you well so that it can turn back to you really pointed recommendations in the moment that are really quick to implement.
That's incredible.
So I wish it was more specific, but the answer is it depends.
That's okay. I'm used to that. I used to work with someone who was in charge of SEO, and she was brilliant. I mean, she was great at her job. And it felt like every single time I asked her a question, she was like, "Well, it depends." I was like, "I hate it." Also, you're always right. So
That's
sometimes,
amazing.
it's still right, even if you don't like it. So if someone is listening right now and they are just like really feeling those early signs of burnout and they're not sure maybe what to do or what that looks like, what's maybe one small shift that they can make, or one really, I don't want to say simple because that sometimes means easy to people, but like one small step that they can take towards something that can give them a little bit of help.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that self-awareness is easily the most important skill to develop as an entrepreneur. And with that, if you can apply that self-awareness and just kind of look at your average state, right? If you were just to look at that and notice where there's tension, whether it's mental, emotional, or literal physical tension, like our bodies hold so much of that, right? Notice that tension and notice where you're not allowing yourself to be right where you are. For me, when I try and live in the future too much, which is, I mean, that's like also what a startup is, right? It's just like we're trying to create something that'll make the future better for everybody, that we can reach, and so it's very future oriented. But if you can get in touch with the present moment, that's where the magic is because if you're not grasping for a future that you can't guarantee, and you're not reaching to your past experience of I can or can't do this, um, then you're just right here, right now. You're just a founder, you're an entrepreneur, you're trying, and that's the best we can do in any given moment. So
I really
it's
love
that
that.
space, it's that space that's so critical.
I love that. I mean, the magic of being right now. I think that that's so beautiful. So this unfortunately runs us out of time because I wish we could keep talking. But if anybody is listening and are curious about how to connect with you, where should they go? What should they do?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I would love to offer your guests a promotion if you don't mind.
Great.
So I'd love to give you 50% off your first month. And right now, we're actually still in our beta pricing. And so right now, it's extra cheap because if you get 50% off $10, then it's $5 a month for the next little while.
That's great. Who doesn't love a good
So,
deal?
yeah, exactly. So there's that aspect. You can find us at entreprana.io. We can put a link in the notes, I'm sure.
We can.
And then you can also find us on Instagram at entreprana. That's it. So
Cool.
ENTREPRANA is how you spell that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dana. This has been another amazing episode with another incredible guest. If you want to connect with Dana, I will put all of that in the show notes. I'll put Entreprana and her information, as she just mentioned. So thank you so much for joining us in all of our discussions this month on mental health for founders. And I can't wait to talk to you again on a future episode of the Managed Chaos podcast.
Thank you, Rachel.